My name is Steve Spielberg, and I just directed a movie called Jaws, and Jaws is about to be nominated in 11 categories. You're about to see us sweep the nominations. We're very confident at this very moment, and so if you all have a seat, we'll get on with it.
A few moments later.
All right, enough. That's it. I'm suffering enough. All right. What?
Let's hear.
Only for what?
Best picture, best editing, best score, and sound. And that's it.
That's it?
We named
Best
every-
screenplay?
Nothing. Not even special effects.
Not even special effects? This is called commercial backlash.
Right.
I don't know if anybody knows the word commercial backlash,
No.
but when a film makes a lot of money, people resent it.
They do.
Everybody loves a winner, but nobody loves a winner.
작품상의 후보로 올라간 조스가 감독상에서 제외돼 속상해하시는 장면이었는데요. 당시 감독상 후보로 올라가신 분들이 뻐꾸기 둥지 위로 날아간 새, 밀로스 폴만, 뜨거운 오후, 시드니 루멧, 내시빌, 로버트 알트만, 아마코드, 페데리코 펠리니, 그리고 베리 린던, 스탠리 큐브릭이었습니다. 오늘 소개해드릴 분은 거장들의 거장, 스티븐 스필버그 감독님입니다. 감독님의 첫 장편 1971년작 듀얼에서 최근 개봉한 파벨만스까지 52년 동안 34편의 장편을 찍었습니다.
Sid Sheinberg, then the VP of the studio, was impressed with your short film Amblin. And what year? It's 1968?
68.
68, okay. And he offers you a 7-year directing contract.
Right.
And as part of that, the very first person you ever directed, I understand, who had a SAG union card was Joan Crawford.
That's right.
Okay. You're how old at this point?
22, I think.
What did you learn directing for television, movies for television?
Expediency, planning, storyboarding. If you had to be on time, they didn't give you the second job. If you did a TV show and you were a half a day over schedule, that was such a war crime that you weren't allowed to do another TV, especially if you were young like I was. And I was kind of breaking into a system that was still populated by the old guard of the old Hollywood. When I was 21 years old and first starting out in television, the average age of my crews were 62 years old. When I got my second job a year later, and I was given a Marcus Welby with Robert Young to direct, I planned every shot on paper so meticulously that I came in a half a day ahead of schedule, and I consistently worked in television from that day on.
To shoot for 13 weeks at a budget of over £1 million is something of a rarity these days. So the producers, Richard Zanuck and David Brown, must have a lot of faith in their property, and even more in their director, Mr. Spielberg, who is only 26 years old.
I've always had a lot of self-confidence as a filmmaker, and I think because I've been shooting little pictures to big pictures since I was 12 years old, when I first got my first assignment when I was 21, I felt like I was an old man already. I felt like I was a veteran. I had made 25 little short films before I got my first break, and that gave me so much confidence. I think if I had been given, like today, a lot of young people are given features right away. They make one short, or they write a script, and they're allowed to direct it, and they're in the industry like that. I'm not sure I would have survived if I had gotten a break that fast without having that much experience behind me, albeit 16mm sort of home shop type movies. It was a great experience for me to do that.
The sad thing is a lot of the people coming up and getting jobs very quickly are not well read. They don't know much about film history. They don't know the difference between a Rossellini film and a Antonioni movie, perhaps. It's sad, you know, and a lot of them have stumbled into the business by the gift of writing. I don't know. You know, I guess that's fine. Warren Beatty turned out to be an actor, as did Robert Redford, who happened to be wonderful directors. They just happen to be wonderful, but there are others who aren't.
이런 감독님과 친하게 지내던 동시대 영화감독 친구들 리스트가 이렇습니다. 마틴 스콜세지, 브라이언 드 팔마, 프란시스 포드 코폴라, 그 다음에 조지 루카스 되겠습니다.
We're just a bunch of filmmakers that weren't afraid to show our rough cuts to each other, and we weren't afraid of that kind of criticism. I'll never forget the day Brian De Palma and I saw the rough cut of Star Wars. Brian's contention did lead to George inventing the now very famous forward, like the old serials that crawled up the screen. And I sat with Scorsese in the editing room helping him edit the last 10 minutes of Taxi Driver. which is a film totally unlike who I am, but he asked me to come in to give my opinion and to make some comments, and I did. We've all helped each other with our movies.
조스 이후로 찍은 5편 중 4편이 꾸준히 대박을 치면서 유니버셜 스튜디오는 아예 스필버그 전용 스튜디오를 만들어줍니다.
Spielberg's become so important in Hollywood that Lou Wasserman, the chairman of MCA Universal, built this sprawling office complex for him right on the back lot. The $4 million project, which serves as creative home to all of those people who work with Spielberg, was an effort to ensure that Universal would get first dibs on the pictures they turn out. Now, Universal did that for you. You didn't have to put that out.
Not a cent. They built the whole thing for me. And as Lou Wasserman said, when I guiltily turned to him and I said, gee, Lou, this is a big deal. How much is it going to cost? He said, don't worry, it's what E.T. made in Uruguay. So
때문일까요? 감독님은 영화 업계에서 왕따 아닌 왕따를 당하셨는데요.
I almost made Rain Man with Dustin Hoffman and Tom Cruise and had to ankle that to do Indy 3 because of my promise to George Lucas. And I worked on the script for almost 5 months with both Tom and Dustin and the writer Ron Bass.
Barry Levinson won the Oscar for Best Director that has so far eluded you. Did that give you a little pang?
Yeah. Oh, sure it did. When the film began winning Best Picture and Best Writer and Best Act, I kept thinking, God, maybe I should have forgotten my entire friendship with George Lucas and said, George, go hire somebody else to do Indy 3, and I should have done that. Of course I thought about that. But then I also thought, realistically, I have a very strange relationship with Hollywood. And practically speaking, if my name had been on The Rain Man, shot for shot, what Barry had done, if simply my name had been substituted for his, I probably don't think I would even have been nominated as director on that film, and I'm not sure if the film would have won that many awards.
실제로 1985년작 더 컬러 펄플은 오스카에서 작품상을 포함해 무려 10개 부문의 후보로 올라갔지만 어째서인지 감독상 부문에선 제외됩니다.
Let me get you to react to something that one of your peers said, another director. Steven Spielberg can't be compared with people like Mike Nichols or Barry Levinson. There is a place for mass entertainment, but it shouldn't be confused with art or quality award-winning filmmaking.
Sometimes I think that statements like that are pretentious in themselves. It sort of says that, art is serious and art can't move you. Art can't be on a bicycle with E.T. and fly across the moon. That can't be art, that because it takes your heart along with it through the sky and it makes you feel like a kid again.
물론 여러분들도 아시다시피 이 같은 업계의 편견은 감독님이 직접 1994년 신들러의 리스트로 박살내버리십니다.
I have friends who have won this before, and I swear I have never held one before. This is the first time I've ever had one of these in my hand. Oh dear. That was a great feeling. I felt so liberated in making Schindler's List, and I'll tell you why. I was liberated because it was in black and white, so already I was making an anti-commercial film. I was making a picture where I was putting so many obstacles ahead of me so it wouldn't be commercial, that it freed my soul to make it the way, with no pressure, that it had to make its money back. And I realized what kind of pressure that puts on filmmakers, especially when you're given big budgets. And the kind of pressure that you've got to have a big opening weekend, you've got to have legs, and you've got to make your negative costs back, and you've got to make your prints and ads back, then you've got to make a profit for the studio, or you're a bum. And by making this relatively low budget, and by doing it in black and white, and choosing this as a subject, it freed me artistically. And I don't ever, in any of the interviews I've ever done before, I never refer to myself as an artist, but I felt, for the first time in my life, like an artist when I made this movie, because I was working with crude tools, and I didn't have all the fancy Hollywood cranes and things that I've had in my other productions. I didn't have movie stars, and it was, and half the film was handheld, and it felt much more like it was coming from me than it was coming from everything around me.
정말 놀라운 건 이 신들러 리스트가 주라기 공원과 같은 해에 개봉했다는 것입니다.
I wish I could come out here and talk about Steven Spielberg for like hours. Because I mean, like, there's Hitchcock and there's Steven Spielberg, like, it's crazy. I mean, I liked you listing off my credits. That was nice. But imagine if somebody said you directed Jurassic Park and Schindler's List in the same year. I mean, you know.
It's pretty unbelievable.
I had developed Schindler's List for over 10 years before I made it. Sid Sheinberg had found the book, sent me the book the weekend E.T. was released, and it took me 10 years to work up the nerve because there was such responsibility in telling that story. Yeah. We were developing the draft, but I hadn't read the script yet. Steve and I had gone to Poland together, we went to Krakow, we went to all the actual sites of the Holocaust there, but I was immediately making Jurassic Park. And I had just finished shooting and I had cut the film together when Steve Zalian finally finished his draft. And I read it with my wife. And I knew when we got to page 167 that I had to make the movie now. And so I basically called the producer, my co-producer on Jurassic, Kathy Kennedy, and I said, I gotta jump ship. I gotta make Schindler's List. And don't ask me why, I just have to make it right now.
How far along were you in Jurassic Park?
I had edited the whole film, and all that was left was mixing and color correction and sound effects editing. That was left. And so Kathy took over the production, and I asked George Lucas if he would supervise the dub, and George came in and dubbed the picture for me.
It's nice to have George Lucas as a friend at that moment.
As a best friend always.
놀랍게도 여기까지가 커리어의 중반 정도에 해당됩니다. 영화 인생 3회차신가 싶을 정도로 엄청 익사이팅한 커리어라고 말할 수 있을 것 같은데요.
But name me 5 living directors that could teach you something about directing.
Steven Spielberg.
Because?
He's just such a perfect filmmaker as far as, like, you know, when he comes up, you know, like the Taking of Shanghai sequence, for instance, in Empire of the Sun, and I talked to him about Private Ryan. He goes, "Oh, we're going to create the greatest, like, taking of Omaha Beach ever," and I have no doubt he will.
At one point in my life, I didn't want to see what it was like for John Ford or Howard Hawks or Michael Curtiz to make 3 films in a single year, which they did several times, more than several times. And it just so happened that the only 2 projects I had committed to was Lost World, which I had been a year and a half in preparation on, and then Saving Private Ryan. Amistad was years away, still in development. So the preparation on Ryan occurred overlapping Lost World. And it was very convenient to do Ryan then. Tom Sanders was working on the models, and I was doing some preliminary casting. Go this way a bit, Tom. Good. Ed. Good. And Miller right there. What threw everything off and turned me more into one of those 1940s style directors was when Amistad came out brilliantly in the rewrite. And I decided almost compulsively to direct the movie between the last shot of Lost World and the beginning of Private Ryan, which means I had a 4-week break after Lost World before I began shooting Amistad, and a 6-week break from my last shot of Amistad to my first shot of Saving Private Ryan. Let's shoot, please.
Okay, let's get ready for a take.
Because of that, I couldn't come over here and do all the recce's that I usually do and look at all the locations and walk through the town and, and plan my shots. In a sense, that became, for me, a blessing in disguise, because I'm actually much better when I hit the deck running than when I sit down angsting over 1,000 drawings, which tends to narrow my imagination when I get to the set, because then I look at the set and I complain, oh my God, this is not like my drawings. How can I get this humongous set to conform to the drawings I made a year ago?
뭔가 득도를 하셨는지 아니면 접신을 하셨는지 2001년부터 2005년까지 개봉한 영화가 무려 6편인데요. 영화들이 너무 다 재밌고 너무 다 훌륭해서 영화 팬으로서 정말 언급하는 것만으로도 숨가쁘고 벅차오르는 시기가 아닌가 싶습니다.
The same feeling I get going to work every morning is the feeling I got going to school every day. Being a bit of an outsider and not being normal and not quite getting good grades and not being able to compete. And my tummy is spilkus, my mom would call it. You know, I'd have before school every day. And I feel that when I make movies too. But I think stress goes with the territory. I think stress is the biological rhythm of filmmaking. And I wouldn't know what to do without stress. I think I work better, I'm more creative, I have more energy in a stressful situation. And also, I don't sleep very much when I'm directing. I get very little, I wish I could sleep more. I get between
4 to 5 hours of sleep when I'm actually in production because I've got too much stuff going on in my head. Most of the time is just trying to figure out what this animal is that is being, trained or is being created. None of us know what our movies are until we're smack dab toward the end of it. I've never known what my movie is in the middle of the movie. And I cut every lunch hour, every single lunch hour. I'm in the trailer or I'm in the cutting room because I edit as I film because I often go back and do things again. If I can assemble something and I'm missing something that I need, the set's still standing. But I don't really know what it is I've done until I'm close to the end of a production.
Well, oftentimes I think a movie tells you what it is.
It does. It is the same way actors will tell you that I didn't know who my character was until I came in for ADR and saw some of it in the ADR room. Oh, that's who she is.
I learn actually more from young filmmakers today than I do from some of the older filmmakers that made movies 80, 90, 60 years ago. Because some of the new filmmakers today are doing such audacious work. The Daniels, such amazing genius work on Everything Everywhere All at Once. And but one of the things I'm learning is you got to have a good script. I've always said if it ain't on the page, it ain't on the stage. And I really believe that. And so my advice is if you want to be a movie director, first of all, write. And if you don't feel that's your strong suit, meet somebody whose strong suit is storytelling and writing and form a little limited partnership because it's the stories. They're going to get an audience to pay attention to you, not the shots.